Hey guys, Hanor here, and I'm bringing to you guys the F-82 Twin Mustang review and tactics guide. Now, before we move on to anything else, I want to throw out a disclaimer. The current F-82 flight model is not the actual flight model for this airplane in the 1.41 patch. I don't know when they plan to actually fix the flight model and put the accurate one in, but I'm just giving this out that this flight model is not accurate. It's supposed to have some major changes in the near future, and by near I mean by soon. TM. Trademarked soon. That Gaijin always throws out there. Could be 6 months from now for all we know. Alright, now that that's been covered, let's move on and talk a little bit about the history of the F-82 Twin Mustang. The short and sweet version of this is that the Twin Mustang was actually being built as a long-range escort fighter for the B-29 super fortresses to attack Japan. But pretty much this was all ended once the nukes were dropped and the war came to an end, because even though we had so many of them built, I can't seem to find that exact number, but I do know that all the ones that were built up until this point were still waiting on engines. Alright, so let's go on to some more mechanical parts of this history. Now, obviously this is two P-51 Mustangs that are slapped together, but they're not your usual variants. Up until this point, one of the most common variants were the Ds and below. And with this Twin Mustang, we were actually using H variants. Now, H variants, you're thinking, well, what's the difference? Probably just a little change like every other model before it. Well, actually, H variants are practically a whole new airplane of themselves, because almost no parts whatsoever could be used from previous aircraft. Even the intake of the air scoops below the aircraft, near the radiators and stuff, are shaped different. I mean, the body was stretched. The parts being used are different. I mean, it's almost a completely different airframe altogether. And though the innards of the engine were basically the same, we were using Merlins on the B variants and the prototypes, but the war coming to an end caused Britain to raise the price for the license of the Packard-built Merlins. Now, this caused us in turn to turn around and go back to Allison engines. However, we did go to a better Allison engine than that was used in P-51s in the past. In fact, we're using a variant that was used on later P-38s, and even modified even more from there. And so the outputting horsepower of these new Allison engines was actually a lot higher than the Merlin engines, but it was only really good at lower altitudes, so altitudes below 20,000 feet. Now, for the last bit of history part that I want to cover before we move on, is about the actual operational use of these planes. And the F-82 Twin Mustang was used. The US used it in Korea. They actually were launching it from Japan, flying all the way over to Korea, doing recon missions. It also did ground attack roles and air defense roles, and all kinds of things. It was used all the way up until, I believe, 1952. They were soon replaced by the F-94 Starfire, which is very similar to the F-82. Now, all this history aside, now let's talk about the game side of things and its relation. It has no comparable relation between historically right now of its flight model and actual in-game. In fact, this plane is very hard to fly. It seems to lock up anytime it feels like it. At slower speeds it'll lock up, at higher speeds it'll lock up. Sometimes you can make it turn on a dime, and then other times it just locks up and does not want to turn whatsoever. It's just a very brooding aircraft, and it took me a lot of time and effort to unlock all the modules for this aircraft, but the only role that I found myself doing somewhat decently with this plane was to actually do a kind of ground striking role in this aircraft. And it can do that quite well, actually, to an extent. You do have another problem as well, because whenever you fly this plane, you automatically draw the attention of all your enemy aircraft. So if they see you and they know that you're there, expect to have mobs of people coming after you. There's going to be planes, you know, nerf hurting behind you so bad that you'll feel like you'll have a flock behind your aircraft, just trying to chew you apart. And who can blame them, really? I mean, free, easy points. You know, going after the F-82 pilot, the poor F-82 pilots. Now, like I said, for ground support, this thing is very good. Ground attack as well. You got 6 M3 Brownings, so you got that really fast fire rate. You got mobs of ammo coming out. It can carry rockets, up to 10 rockets, and it can carry 2 2,000-pound bombs, which is enough to take out a base in itself. Which is actually one of the things that I would aim for. If you plan to fly this thing to grind for the next aircraft, I would unlock the bombs ASAP. You first unlock the 1,000 pounders, but once you get the 2,000 pounders, then you can start doing some base runs, which is what I'm attempting to do right here in this video. I know that this bow fighter's after me, and so I'm trying to run, but unfortunately the top speed in this thing is very slow in game, unlike its historical counterpart. However, I know I'm gonna make it. And much like many bombers know that basically if you can get your bomber to at least one of the bases and bomb it, you've pretty much made the repair up and you've made a decent chunk of RP. So it's not necessarily a bad choice, but I know a lot of people that are playing this aircraft are expecting to fly a fighter, and that's what they want to do. So if that's what you're expecting, I recommend going off and still flying your regular Mustangs or some Bearcats or something until you grind past this aircraft. On the rarest of occasions, you will have the opportunity to actually strike somebody else that's in the ground support role or ground attack role and knock them out of the skies. But outside of that, you're not going to do that well in this plane. Not until they upgrade the flight model. I mean, it really is just that bad. But for a ground support role, it works good. Whenever you're left alone, if you're left alone, you will definitely do a lot of damage. I finally unlocked my rockets for this in this episode right here. I'm hitting some light targets real quick. And you can only see 6 rockets on there. I'd already fired off 2 sets of them. For some reason, I just kept one rocket would go on one side of the pillbox and the other rocket would go on the other side. This is like the craziest thing, because normally rockets are a little bit more diverse. It's almost as though they fire straight line on this particular aircraft right now. And so one of my tricks for using the rockets in this is now I tried to set the line for the rocket bar to the left or to the right, and that was just really bad flak. To the left or to the right of it and fire. And even there, for some reason, I swore it was going to be a hit and I just somehow missed, but it might have had something to do with that drooping wing there, you know, dragging me to the side there. And so, you know, this also leads to the thing about the flak damage here, because a lot of the structure is designed to support the plane, even if one of the aircraft, like pilots, were knocked out or high damage was done to that side, that it could still be flyable. Now, how true that would be with a lot of holes in your wing, I don't know. But I would imagine it would probably be a little bit better than what we're seeing here. Yes! I hit it! It finally died! I'm so happy. And both, again, both flying past it. I mean, it's just crazy how that is. And to help put that in perspective, normally between 2 sets of rockets that I fire at a target, I'm going to at least hit 1 target. Between, 4 rockets. So far, I fired every rocket, all 10 rockets, and only hit 1 target. It's really bad. But I knew I was pretty beat up and in a really bad spot, so I said, why not? Let's just head on a bow fighter. That's like one of the worst things you could ever do. And bam! I pilot sniped the bow fighter. And I'm still flying. And in fact, he actually damaged my right wing, which helps level me out. So now I actually have some decent control of my plane. It's just too hilarious. But since I was off, doing this ground attack role, I wasn't really paying attention to, who all's in the match, how many people are left, and this becomes a problem that I just was unaware of. And all of a sudden, in the sky, everywhere, there's just red. All I can see is red. And I believe, I'm not sure if I looked at it yet or in that fast forwarding part, but I look and I'm the only plane left alive on my team. So now I realize that I'm pretty much just in trouble, besides that bomber. And I realize I'm in trouble, and I'm like, I'm gonna get this one pillbox. And my wing gets ripped off, and I'm denied. Alright guys, well I hope you enjoyed this show, and if so, give me the big thumbs up, and subscribe for future content to come. I know that there wasn't a whole lot to this episode of good flying and everything, but it's still very informative, and I hope y'all enjoyed that much. Alright guys, good hunting out there. Well, from the game. So utilizing these all together in combination is my methods for aiming. Now, before I move on into that